In order to fully immerse yourself in a role-playing game world, a few key features are necessary. You need interesting characters, not just in their own traits and history, but in how they interact with others in that world and how they grow as a character. You also need a world to be interesting in some way. This can be accomplished with unique locales or interesting flora and fauna. Finally, that world also needs interesting societies. That's what I'm going to look at in today's video. The empires of the world of balance. I'll only be looking at the empires of the present world using the discovery of the frozen Esper in Narshe as a reference point. Ancient fallen empires long since vanished from the historical record, recorded only in the legends, will not be covered here. Neither will the societies created after the world falls into ruin. I'll look at the society's history, political relations to other empires, as well as their futures, for the ones that have a future. At the time of the discovery of the Esper in Narshe, there are three major empires vying for control. The Gestalian Empire, known as just the Empire, the Kingdom of Figaro, the Kingdom of Doma. In addition to the three major players, there are several independent city-states as well. I'll start with the tragic Kingdom of Doma. And I say tragic because this empire will eventually be wiped out by its enemies. Doma is situated on the western edge of the northeastern continent. Doma Castle, the heart of the empire, is along the western coast, north of the river splitting the continent. To the east, southeast, and north are mountain ranges. The castle itself is a giant fortress housing not only the royal family, but the bulk of Doma's military and a large portion of the population. There are no other major cities in the empire. The people of Doma are steeped in ancient tradition and are culturally similar to medieval feudal Japan, including the samurai class of warriors. Unlike Figaro and the Empire, Doma has mostly rejected modern technology. Despite being rather isolated from the rest of the world, Doma is currently at war with the Empire. The Gestalian troops have invaded the Kingdom of Doma, and its people have taken up arms to defend their lands from these foreign invaders. Even though the Empire uses modern war machines and even Magitech armor, Doma has not only managed to hold on, but has successfully pushed the Empire back. In several cases, the Doma troops, led by the veteran Samurai Cyan, engage the Empire in bloody hand-to-hand combat. The Empire attacks from the east, and must move troops through a narrow pass in the mountains, forcing them to take casualties on the long march to Doma's seat of power. But despite Doma's martial prowess, they are unable to hold off the sheer number of troops the Empire is willing to sacrifice as cannon fodder against the Doma people. By the time that the Narshe Esper is uncovered, the Empire is beginning its march against the castle itself. After Terra Branford, the Empire's mind-controlled half-Esper killing machine escapes. The Empire shifts tactics against Doma. Kefka, the Mad General, and second to the Emperor Gestal himself, executes a plan of genocide against Doma. By poisoning the river, Doma's only fresh supply of water, the Empire manages to nearly wipe out the people of Doma. The Empire forms a blockade around the castle after that, and at the Eastern Pass, ready to slaughter any survivors fleeing for their lives, or anyone attempting to enter the area. With the help of the returners, the Samurai Cyan survives to fight back against the Empire, but his beloved kingdom lives only on in his memory. After the defeat of Doma, the Empire will continue to occupy the castle and surrounding area. The biggest question coming out of this war is why the Empire was so adamant about wiping out the people of Doma and preventing anyone from entering the castle. Given the aesthetic design of Doma, as well as the adherence to an ancient culture, the Empire might have assumed that Doma descends from the mage warriors who fought in the War of the Magi. This link is never confirmed or denied, and the actual descendants are located elsewhere. Still, if the Empire simply believed Doma to descend from the Magi, that would give them reason enough to exterminate the entire society. Since the Empire's rise to power is linked to Espers and Magitech, and this scenario Doma would have knowledge of the Magi, Doma may in fact possess the means to defeat the Empire. This would also necessitate that the Empire protect the castle from intruders, scavengers, and looters. Left abandoned, who knows what someone might find digging through the abandoned castle looking for treasure, perhaps a weapon, or an ancient tome detailing a way to defeat or circumvent the power of magic. Now let's take a look at the Kingdom of Figaro. Figaro is located on the north and eastern continent, with the capital, Figaro Castle, centrally located within the desert. The city of South Figaro is south of the castle, the town of Collingen to the northwest, and Nicaea to the east. Figaro Desert is surrounded by nearly impassable mountains. Cave systems, either natural or built by the citizens of Figaro, allow passage between the castle and other towns. This location is quite strategic for the castle, since invading armies must approach from the ocean to the southwest and cross the desert with little to no cover. Spotters on the castle spires are able to see anyone approach from miles away, giving ample time to prepare defenses. The desert also hides Figaro Castle's most valuable technology. The castle can drill and submerge into the sand and physically move itself to alternate locations. The castle can reappear in Figaro Desert or shift position across the mountains to the west and surface near Collingen. Figaro is a hereditary monarchy and is currently ruled by King Edgar, after his brother Sabin abdicated his right to the throne. A matron, or sometimes high priestess, acts in an advisory role to the king. Figaro is officially allied with the Gestalian Empire, but is by no means considered to be on equal footing with the Empire. The Empire treats Figaro as a vassal state, making demands and dealing brutal punishment when said demands are not met. But Figaro plays a dangerous game. While outwardly acting in good faith with the Alliance, King Edgar works closely with the resistance movement known as the Returners to take back the lands seized by the Empire. This is done through financial backing from the treasury, but the king and several citizens of Figaro are active members within this clandestine group. The Empire and Figaro are on mostly peaceful terms until the Esper discovery in Narshe. The Returners bring Tara Branford, a human-Esper hybrid, to Figaro in attempts to recruit her into their organization. The Empire's spies get word of this, and none other than Kefka himself arrives at Figaro in short order, demanding King Edgar turn her over, or else. The king, figuring the Empire's bluffing, plays the fool as to the existence of Tara. This response does not please Kefka in the slightest, and he orders his troops to set fire to the castle. This forces the king to reveal not only the castle's submerging ability, but his alliance with the Returners resistance group as well. From this point on, the alliance between Figaro and the Empire is no more. The Empire begins its campaign of occupation, starting with the people of Figaro in the town of South Figaro. Spies for the Empire in that city, along with the now absent king who fled the Empire in the desert, allows for a quick and relatively painless occupation. Imperial troops would eventually vacate the Kingdom of Figaro, just as they did with Doma Castle after an attack on their capital by a group of Espers. As Figaro has a strong economy, moderately advanced technology, and cities with good strategic geographic locations, Figaro manages to survive the destruction of the world mostly intact. Finally, we come to the Gestalian Empire. The empire derives its name from Gestal, the current sitting emperor. Situated on the southern continent, the empire has access to an incredible abundance of resources, including food, metals, and most important of all, access to the gateway to the Esper world. For much of Gestal's nearly 50 years on the throne, the empire has sent expeditions throughout the world to find the Esper Gate, and has finally succeeded approximately 18 years prior to the Narshe Esper discovery. Since that discovery, the Empire has utilized the power of the Espers, literally siphoning the life force out of several captured Espers to fuel their capital city, Vector, as well as power their nearly invincible war machines, known as Magitech armor. Even high-ranking soldiers in the hierarchy are fused with magical abilities derived from the life essence of the imprisoned Espers. With this amazing power, Gestal has spent the great part of the last 18 years conquering neighboring city-states, including Zen and Miranda. Currently, the Empire controls the entire southern continent and includes the cities of Vector, Albrook, Zen, and Miranda. Vector, unlike all other cities in the world, is constructed of all-metal structures, the pinnacle of which is the Emperor's Citadel, towering over all other structures and visible for dozens of miles away, as well as the Magitech research facility where the engines of war are created. Additionally, the city-state Jador, a wealthy independent state neighboring the kingdom of Figaro, acts as a puppet state for the Empire, providing both safe haven for troops being deployed to the north, as well as military intelligence through spy networks. The Empire's greed for ultimate power would ultimately lead to the downfall of the Empire. Upon discovering that killing Espers and converting them to magicite allows for the extraction of far superior energies than a living Esper, Gestal once again moves to open the sealed gate to the Esper world in order to gather more material in the form of Espers. The Espers that came through ravage Vector in a surprise attack and flee to the mountains of the island nation of Thamasa, home to the true descendants of the Magi. Gestal would form alliances with Figaro, the survivor of Doma, and the Returners under the guise of wanting peace throughout the world, a change of heart after seeing his wondrous city in flames. This was simply a convenient way to get the Returners to find the Espers for him and bring them out of hiding in order to advance his dreams of conquest. With even more power, Gestal and his right-hand man Kefka use that power to raise the floating continent containing the Triad, statues of the gods that can shape the world to one's own desires. Kefka would ultimately betray and murder Emperor Gestal, as there can be only one true god to rule the people in the eyes of Kefka. He then shifts the statues, bringing on the destruction of the world. Many of the cities of the Empire survive in one way, shape, or form, but Miranda would be rendered uninhabitable, and the capital city Vector would be utterly destroyed, with the Great Metal Citadel and Magitech factory used in the construction of the Tower of Kefka. These are the three major civilizations found throughout the World of Balance. Their plights intertwined with the exploits of the Returners. Not all of them will survive the destruction of the world or the eventual defeat of Kefka, but what remains stands as a beacon of hope for future generations, and the ones that didn't, a dire message of warning of the dangers of armed conflict and unbridled ambition. Thank you all for watching. Next month's episode will feature the history and lore of the Returner's most wild, savage, yet misunderstood character, Gao. I'm Retro Gaming Knight, and I'll see you in the next video.